Hare Krishna. Kausalya had spent the night in the undisturbed prayers and pensions on behalf of her son. She was unaware of his meeting with the king and Kaikeyi. Ram found her seated before the sacrificial fire, surrounded by Brahmans making offering to Vishnu. She was clad in white silk and although fatigued by fasting, she still appeared most beautiful. Upon seeing Rama bowing at her feet, she rose up joyfully to embrace and bless him. May you attain the age and fame of the virtuous royal cities who have gone before you in our line. Sit with me a little and take breakfast. Then go to your father, the ever fruitful monarch, for today he will install you as the prince regent. Kaushalya offered Rama a bedspread stick next to her, but he merely touched it in respect and said, "O godly lady, surely you do not know that a great calamity has now arrived. What I am going to tell you will cause you unprecedented pain, even as it will my beloved wife Sita. I am about to leave for the forest. Therefore, what need have I of this fine seat? The time has arrived for me to occupy a made of forest grasses. Indeed, in accord with a promise already made to my father, I, I shall inhabit a lonely forest region, living on fruits and roots. How then can I partake of this royal fare you offer? The empire will install Bharata as prince regent and has actual made to the forest to live like a hermit for 14 years. Kausalya at once fell down like a tree served at its root. Her mind confused, she lay on the floor like a goddess fallen from heaven. Rama quickly lifted her, gently stroking her face with his hand. Kausalya slowly regained her senses, struck with agony as she looked at Rama, who was controlling his own grief. She knew beyond the doubt that her son would not possibly have spoken falsely, nor was he given a flippancy or jest. His words were certainly true and they pierced her heart. Clapping Ram's hand in her, she spoke in a choked voice. For a long time, I suffered the terrible pain of being childless, O beloved son. Surely the feeling of being without issue is a grief that consumes a barren woman. Before your birth, every effort your father made to please me was futile or Raghava, for I longed only for a child your birth ended that pain. But now I fear that an even greater suffering has arrived. Kausalya could not bear the thought of a separation from Ram. She had him tightly as the spoke. A separation from you will rend my heart in two. That pain will be compounded by the cruel word of the junior wife. What could be more painful for a woman? And and ending the grief and lamentation has become my lot. Even with you by my side, I have been dispatched. What then will be my fate when you are gone, oh dear child? Surely I shall soon die. Kausalya, though how she had always been neglected by her husband in favor of Kaikai. With Bharata intolerant, she would be entire abandoned for 27 years. She had watched Ram grow to manhood, awaiting the day when he would assume the throne and her vows. How could she any longer suffer Kaikai's scorn? Now Ram here only souls was living. It seemed her prayers were all in vain. Her fasts and meditation were useless. What was the value of all her self-discipline and sacred observations rather than becoming the king? Her son was being cast away. Kaushalya condemned herself. Surely my heart is hard like a steel, for it does not settle upon hearing this terrible news. They will not take one before the proper time, or else I should have certainly gone immediately to the court of Yamraj, the great Lord of Death. If by one's own sweet will one could meet with they, then in your absence I would depart this very day. Without you, O Ram, life will be useless. Therefore, like a cow following its calf, I shall definitely go with you to the forest. Waiting in this way, Kaushalya contemplated the calamity about the befall her. Ram was duty bound to his father and would never oppose his order. He would certainly live without the Delhi, unable to bear her suffering. Kaushalya collapsed, sobbing onto a couch. Uh, Lakshmana stood nearby, writhing in pain. This situation was intolerable. How could Ram accept it? Why did he not do something? Unable to repress his tumultuous anger, Lakshman spoke furiously to Kaushalya. I also find Ram's imminent departure to be an unexpected, oh glorious lady. Ram should never relinquish the royal fortune for any cause, perverted by the word of a woman. The king has lost his good sense. He is desirous of a sensible enjoyment and has been overpowered by lust and sanity. What will he not say, urged on by the sinful Kaikai? To desire the banishment of the powerful Ram is nothing short of madness. What vice or offense can be found in Ram? There is no man in this world, even if he be Ram's deadly enemy, who would find in him any fault, even in his absence. What man what men who respect the virtue would forsake such a son, who is equal to the gods, disciplined and kindly disposed even to his enemies? What son would have such a command from a father who has abandoned righteousness? Lakshman's furious voice resounded around the chamber. If the king would not give Ram the kingdom, then it should be taken by force. He would stand by his brother with bow in hand, exhibiting his valor. Let anyone who dare try to prevent the installation of Ram, he would hold off the entire city of Ayodhya. Should they oppose Ram, whoever supported Bharat would find himself slain by Lakshmana. This situation called for strong action. Why should they accept it meekly? Lakshman tightly gripped the bow hanging from his shoulder and turned to his brother. If at Kaikai's instigation our father acted like an enemy, then he should be made a captive or even killed without the complication. The scriptures make clear that even a father or a presbyter can be rejected if they lost their discrimination for failing to distinguish between right and wrong. On what authority has the king sought to confer the kingdom upon Kaikai's sons when it rightful belonged to you? Breathing hard and heavy sighed, Lakshman turned back to Kaushalya and assured her and that Ram would be installed as king. He held us his bow, O godly lady. I swear by my bow that I am truly devoted to Ram with the whole my heart. If Ram entered into blazing fire or retires to the forest, know that I have already done the same. I shall display your sorrow by means of my arms, even as the sun dispels the morning mist. Let your royal highness, along with Ram, witness today my valor. I shall kill my age and Repta father who, as a result of senilities, has entered his second childhood in Kaikai's association. Lakshman stood blazing like a fire, yet Ram remained calm and composed. Kaushalya, weeping, spoke to her son, having heard your brother Lakshman, who has raised the pertinent and proper argument. Consider now what ought to be done. You should not obey the unjust command of Kaikais, leaving me her to you. Kaushalya knew Ram would act only according to moral laws. He would never be sought by sentiment to divide from scripture truths. She called upon Ram as his mother. Dear son, do I not deserve the same obeisance as you offer to the king? Is a service to the mother not an even higher virtue than service to the Father? I cannot allow you to live, not could I live in your absence. If you live, I will take a vow to fast until death. You will then be get guilt of killing your own mother. The queen cried petulantly, trying. trying again and again to convince Ram not to leave. Ram burned with unjust to hear his mother here express her feelings, but keeping his mind under control. He spoke to her he spoke to her in a gentle voice. I do not feel able to my mother's commands, and therefore I wish to enter the forest. The order of one's father is no less than the order of the Supreme Lord. It cannot be transgressed if one wishes to acquire virtue in this world. The king is not ordering me to do anything sinful. By obeying his command, I shall be following the path of morality, which has even been followed by pious men. I only desire to do what is right, never otherwise. For as long as one does the bidding of his father, he is never overcome by evil. Ram turned toward Lakshman and admonished him, speaking in soft but fire tones. I know your unsuppressed love for me, as well as your strength of arms, which cannot be easily withstood. O noble prince, my gentle mother does not deeply understand the imports of morality and is thus experiencing great agony. My father's command is rooted in righteousness and is therefore worthy of being obeyed. Indeed, I have already given my words to honor his order. I cannot break my pledge since I have been commanded by Kaikai according to my father's promise. O valiant prince, how can I, knowing well the path of pity, neglect that command? Therefore, give up this unworldly thought of overthrowing the king. Stand fire on the rightfulness alone and do not give way to anger and a display of strength. Accept my resolution to follow the royal order. Ram went before his mother and knelt down with folded hand, bowing his head low. He was as devoted to Kaushalya as he was to Dasarath and did not want to live without her consent. He again asked her permission to depart. Ram swore on his life, and after the 14 years had passed, he would return and remain in Ayodhya as her devoted servant. He asked her not to yield to sorrow. In accord with the entire law of morality, she should serve the king. He also desired to follow the path of piety. For that reason, he was anxious to live for the forest in compliance with his father's order. She should not try to prevent him. Hearing his request, Kaushalya felt impatience, and how could her son have done her in this way? She had always carefully observed her duty as a mother. She was always affectionate towards Ram. Surely Ram realized that she would die if he left her now. In a last attempt to change his mind, the queen spoke in spirited tones. As your mother, I do not grant your leave to depart. I am not as venerable to you as your father. O Ram, I cannot face the thought of your loving and your absence. I cannot for either life or death. What will be the value of life to me without you? Whatever it be in this world or in heaven, your presence of even an hour is more preferable to me than the presence of heaven and earth combined. As his mother wailed piteously, Ram only became all the more desirous to escape, even as a lonely elephant would want to escape when surrounded by men, according it with fire spread towards a trap. Fixed in his determination to do his duty, he replied, I feel that both you, my dear mother, and the powerful Lakshman have not properly understood my mind. Thus, both of you hurts me most painfully. Happiness in this world is a temporary and ultimately illusory. Only the foolish think themselves to be the body composed of material elements and thus seek sensual happiness. This body, along with its relations and all its sensually joys, exist for only a few moments. The real self is the entire eternal soul dwelling in the heart, whose happiness lies only in the pursuit of a godly life. Both Kausalya and Lakshman listened and silently as Ram spoke eternally spiritual truths. He describes how association of friends and relatives was exactly like the coming together to sticks floating in a river. There are they are thrown together and very soon parted by the swift current of times. Therefore, one's happiness should never depend upon such a ephemeral relationship. One should give up all attachment for the body and fix the mind only upon the eternal Supreme Lord, whose order is represented by superiors such as the king. This would bring everlasting happiness. Ram conclude, how then can I abandon the righteous path of following my father's command simply out of attachment for either the kingdom or my relatives? Ram reassured them that he was not at all disturbed to be leaving for the forest. He responded to the suggestion that Dasrath was acting against the code of morality. The king has adhered to the virtue even at the cost of his own desires and happiness, suffering intense pain. He is prepared to abandon his beloved son for the sake of truthfulness. My dear mother, it is he who is always your shelter and means of happiness in both this and the other world. You should therefore remain by his side and serve him. Pray gently, may live to go to the forest. I shall never accept the rulership of the earth through unrighteousness. Ram stopped speaking and approached the unjust Lakshman, who was still incensed with his father and Kaikai. Lakshman stood with his eyes open wide in rage, like an infatuated elephant. Ram gently restrained his devoted brother. Control now your anger and grief, O Lakshman. take courage and overtook this seeming offense to myself. Experience instead the joy of assisting our Father to increase his virtue by implementing his pledge. Gently, brother, please send back all the items gathered for my consecration today. And reassure my mother and help me prepare for my departure. Ram placed his hand on Lakshman's shoulder. He was pained to see his brother's distress, but he had no intention of challenging his father. He had to vindicate the king's honor. As long as he remained in Ayodhya, the king would suffer the pain of seeing his truthfulness questioned. Only when Ram had left for the forest, clear in a direction and worrying Metellus would Kaikai be satisfied and the king's word redeemed. Lakshman looked at the ground. He was burning with the thought of the terrible injustice about to be done to his brother. But he could not possibly resist Ram's desire. Ram put his arm around Lakshman's shoulder and spoke resolutely. All this should be seen as the will of providence which can never be fruited. No blame should be attached to Kaikai for it. It was Providence alone who moved her to make her request to our Father. How could she have ever decided to see me away? She has always treated me exactly as her son, as my own mother, Kaushalya. Surely she was prompted by providence to say to the king thus terrible words, giving him such grief. I know her to be gentle and kind. She would never like a vulgar woman. Utter words intended to terminate both myself and our father. Ram felt no anger towards Kaikai, and he did not want her to be a blame for what was, after all, a divine arrangement. He continued that which cannot be foreseen or understood must be accepted as the will of providence and alone what man can ever content with destiny. Joy and sorrow, gain and loss, birth and death, all of these come one after another by the arrangement of providence of destiny. None can avoid them, nor can anyone alter the strong and furious of destiny. When even the best plays go without any apparent cause, it is the undoubtable take the work of providence. Ram smiled at Lakshman, whom he knew had spoken only out of love. He asked him not to lament for the which was unavoidable decreed by some unseen destiny. Lakshman should not censure either their father or Kaikai as they were moved by superior forces. Ram then asked that the sacred waters gathered for his installation be instead used to anoint him at the inauguration of his vow of assassination. He looked at his younger brother with affection. Beloved Lakshman, I will soon depart, for this is surely my destiny. Lakshman stood with his head bent low, pondering his brother's word. His mood swung between distress at Ram's impending exile and delight at his brother's steadfast adherence to virtue. But he was still not fully convinced that it was right for Ram to live. Furrowing his growth, he says like an anger cobra in a hole. His frowning face appeared like that of a furious lion and was difficult to gaze upon violently shaking his head and arm. He said to Ram, your steady devotion to duty in equipped the O Ram, but carefully consider its result in this case. By accepting the word of that a couple, you are prepared to do something that is condemned by all people. I am surprised that you do not suspect the motive of our father and Kaikai. If there were any truth in this story about the ones gently by the king, then why did Kaikai not seek their fulfillment long ago? Lakshman rescues the king of conspiring with Kaikai. Dashrath must have surely lost his senses under the influence of lust. Along with that covetous Kaikai, he had made a sinful plan quite opposed to any morality. He concluded that the king's unauthorities was therefore fit to be rejected. Please forgive my intolerance, O Raghava, but I cannot accept your presence pity, which impels you to take as fact this evil truth of even, nor can I accept that destiny is supreme. Lakshman was a heroic and powerful warrior. His face turned crimson as he went on. Why should one acquiesce to a painful fact as if he is helpless? Only those who are cowardly and weak would trust in destiny alone. Lakshman urged the valiant always remain fire of mind. They never become deserted when their purpose are thwarted by fate, rather than action themselves with all power. Lakshman stood before Ram with his bow held and high. Today you shall see me losing at the enemy like an uncontrollable king of elephants. Not even all the gods are united together will prevent your construction today. Those who support your exile might find themselves either deprived of life or sent to the forest. I will thus the hopes of our father and Kaikai. Anyone opposing me will find no shelter in destiny, as my fire's strength ruthlessly cuts him down. Lakshman drew his sword and cleaved the air. He gave full vent to his rage. The right time of Ram to retire to the forest had certainly not arrived. He should rule the globe for thousands of years. Only when his own sons were ready to take his place should he leave for the forest. That was the proper course of virtue. Lakshman seemed about to consume the earth as he spoke. If you fear consume for the seemingly sinful act of rejecting father's order, you should not worry. I shall personally guard you in every way and forcibly repel all those who object to your accepting this kingdom, even as the coastline hold back the ocean. O Ram, allow yourself to be installed today. I am able to prevent my impediment to the ceremony. Those arms of mine are not meant simply to add to my attractiveness, nor is this for a mere ornaments, nor are my sword and quirt of arrows hanging on my body as badge of honor. All these are meant for crushing the enemy. Today you will see arrows released like an incense shower of rain. You will witness my sword flashing like thing as it cut down all those who stand before me. The earth will be thickly covered with the arms, legs, and heads of heroes hewn down by my sword. And enemies will drop like so many meters falling from the sky, while I stand on the battlefield with uplift the weapons. How can any man alive be proud of his strength? Today I shall demonstrate that the king's helplessness and establish your unopposed sovereignty. And tell me which of your enemies should this day be the part of life, fame, and relations. Instruct me how to proceed so that this with earth will be brought under your control. O glorious Lord of our race, I am here to do your bidding alone. Ram wiped away his brother's anger tear. He knew Lakshman was only speaking out his devotion to him. Lakshman knew that ultimately he had to follow Ram. He knew Ram could not possibly act against religion or morality. Nevertheless, in his pain, he expressed his powerful feeling. Ram perfectly understood Lakshman's mind and he comforted him. Oh, gently brother, you should know I am firmly obedient to my superiors' command. This is the path trodden by the religious. Be fire and control your grief and anger. That will be the most pleasing to me. Kaushalya realized her son was unshakable in his determination to obey his father's order. Tears ran streamed down her face. who would believe this was happening? Ram, the dearest son of the emperor, was being exiled to the dangerous jungle. How could that peace, mind, and gentle boy live in such a fearful place? The destiny was surely supreme in a world where one like Ram must retire to the forest. Kaushalya trembled with grief. She held her son's head. It is well known how a cow will follow her remain calf. In the same way, I shall follow you wherever you may go. For a separation from you, my dearest son will kill me. Ram addressed his mother with love, bred by Kaikai, and seeing me leave for the forest, my father will surely not survive if he is also abandoned by you, O godly queen. It is sheer cruelty for a woman to desert her worldly husband. Death should never ever be completed, for it is always a fundamental so long as the king live you should render him service. For this is the eternal moral code. For a married woman, the husband is her duty and her Lord. Ram knew his mother was fully aware of his religious duty, which should would never abandon. He spoke only to give her a strength and insurance. The queen listened and silent as Ram invoking the ancient religious code described the faith of a woman who does not serve her earthly husband, even if she is devoted to fast and script observation, she will become tainted by sin and suffer the reaction. On the other hand, a woman who devotedly serves her husband even without any other religion and practice will reach the highest heaven. Ram folded his palm and therefore, O Queen, remain devoted to the king and ensure that he does not suffer excessive grief, leading a holy life date and time until I return. When you finally see me duly installed as king and dedicated to your service, you shall achieve all that you desire. Although this meant at the prospect of losing her son for 14 years, the pair's Kaushalya nevertheless felt delight to her his administration. It was clear she could not change his carefully considered resolution to depart. Blinded by her tears, she said, Go then with my blessing, O glorious son. My good betide you always. My misery will end only when you again return from the forest and offer me a word of consolation. If only that time were already arrived. Live now with a steady mind, dear Ram. Follow in the footsteps of the righteous. Repay your debt to your father. Still in that grief of sorrow, Kaushalya began to worship the gods in order to invoke the divine blessing for her son. praying to each of the principal deities and asked that they guard Ram from all dangers. She offered a oblation of ghee into the secret fire. As she finished her prayers, Ram bowed before her and held her feet for some time while she wept softly, embracing him tightly. Kaushalya said, "Please live in peace, my child, and accomplish your purpose. When at least I see your ascends your father's throne, wearing the crown and claimed in royal wealth. Will my heart's desire be fulfilled? May all the gods protect you as you sojourn in the deathful forest. Depart now, O Raghu. I wish you well. Ram took leave of the grieving Kaushalya, who followed after him with her eyes. He went out of her apartments feeling agony. Lakshman, who had resigned himself to accept Ram's determination to depart, followed close behind. Now, chapter 9. Yeah, the answer. Sorry, two. Is it one, two, two. Is it okay? Yeah, before I told them, they say, okay, nobody is here. I can. Chapter 9, Sita's Plea. Rama moved along the royal highway towards Sita's quarters, praised by the many Brahmins who lined the road. Sita still had not heard the news of Rama's impending exile and was eagerly awaiting him. Her mind absorbed in thoughts of his installation. As her husband entered the room, she sprang from her seat. Rama had left Lakshman outside and had gone alone to speak with Sita. He was perplexed as he considered how to tell his wife the terrible news. Although striving to control his mind and contain his grief, Rama's face wore a pained expression and his head hung low. Sita was astonished to see him in that state, his face pale and bathed in perspiration. Apprehensively, she inquired, "What troubles you, my lord? Today is the auspicious and joyful day of your installation, but you seem to be covered by the dark shadow of grief." Sita asked Rama why he was not accompanied by the royal servants carrying the white umbrella. Why was he not wearing regal dress or anointed with the sandalwood paste after having gone through the inaugural ceremony? Where was the king and his ministers? What was happening? Rama studied Rama studied his mind and looked upon Sita's face. My worshipable father has ordered me to enter the forest for 14 years exile.
O most beautiful princess. According to Kaikeyi's desire, my brother Bharata will be installed in my place. Indeed, in days gone by, two boons were granted to Kaikeyi by my ever truthful father. She has recalled the king's debt now and placed him under his word to send me away, conferring the office of Prince Regent upon the noble Bharata. In obedience to morality, I shall therefore depart forthwith to the forest. I have come to see you on my way. Sita shook like a tree caught in a gale. How should this be true? She listened with astonishment. She listened with astonishment as Rama continued, O high minded lady, please remain firm. In my absence, you should take to fast and prayer, remaining disciplined at all times, worship and serve my father and my and mother, who are both grieving deeply due to my separation from them. Sumitra and Kaikeyi should also be served by you, as should Bharata and Satrughna, who are both as dear to me as my own self. Be especially careful not to praise me before Bharata, for men endowed with power and wealth cannot tolerate hearing others praised. Indeed, Bharata will be the king and should therefore be served by you with all attention carefully, avoiding any offense. Sita was dumbfounded. She turned pale and her eyes opened wide. She knew without doubt that Rama meant what he said. The princess listened in horror as he instructed her. Rama told her to remain living peacefully in Ayodhya under the protection of the emperor and Bharata, devoting herself to righteousness and religion. Rama himself would leave immediately for the forest. After hearing Rama speak, and the noble Sita became indignant out of her love and her husband. Her cheeks flushed red and she replied angrily, how have you uttered such words today, O Lord? They are never worthy of one possessed of strength and weapons, who is capable of affording protection to the weak. Your advice is not worth hearing. Considering Rama as her only refugee, Sita spoke strongly. She described how the father, mother, brother, or any other relation were never the shelter of a chaste woman with a husband. The wife should share her husband's fortune under all circumstances. She stood in front of Rama, her eyes flashing as she continued. I am enjoined by the ancient religious codes to enter the forest along with you, dearest Rama. I can't possibly remain in Ayodhya. If you leave today for the forest, I shall walk before you, clearing away the sharp grasses and thorns on the path. Sita assured Rama that he could take her anywhere with confidence. She would live happily under his protection and would prefer forest life with him to residence in the richest palace or even heaven itself without him. She had been trained in all the arts of service and was well prepared to accompany him. I need no further advice, O Lord. Simply order me to depart. Remaining with you in fragrant woodlands, I shall be as happy as I am now living in your palace. Sita felt pained that Rama had not considered taking her with him. Raised in a line of warriors kings, Raised in a line of warrior kings, the princess was not easily disturbed by difficulty. Again and again, she exhorted her husband to take her to the forest. Certainly, you are capable of guarding me from any danger. Indeed, none other can guard me as you can, Rama. Nor is it their sacred duty. I shall therefore go with you today. That is my fixed determination. Sita was found of the country. She imagined herself alone with Rama amid beautiful mountains, woods, and lakes. Even if it was austere, she would nevertheless prefer thousands of years spent with her husband in this way than a single day without him. She spoke her deepest feelings. I shall enter the forest at your feet. I am exclusively devoted to you. My mind is ever attached to you, and I am determined to die if disunited from you. Therefore, grant my prayer and take me with you today. Rama considered the difficulty of living in the forest, and he did not feel at all inclined to take Sita with him. He spoke gently to his dear wife, who had buried her face in her hands and was sobbing. My dearest lady, you are born of a noble life and are always devoted to virtue. Practice that virtue and appease my mind, for I cannot bear to see you suffer. I shall now give you advice meant only for your good. Frail Sita. Not only is there no joy in the fearful forest, but it is always fraught with misery. Simply by taking you there, I would be neglecting my duty to protect you. Rama described the forest where he had gone many times for hunting expeditions. There were numerous lions and other fierce beasts. Marshes and rivers abounded in crocodiles and other fierce aquatics. The forest paths were rugged and often impossible. Innumerable thorny trees and stinging bushes made traveling difficult. Sharp grasses grew everywhere. Hornets, gnats, scorpions, spiders, and mosquitoes were always present, along with snakes and serpents of every kind. In the deep forest, the darkness was dense. Furious winds often blew, lashing a traveler's face with the debris. Rama was determined to dissuade the gentle Sita from following him. Exhausted after searching all day for food, one must lie down at night upon beds of dry leaves. Baths must be taken in lonely lakes, which are the abode of serpents. By day and night, the terrible pangs of hunger can be appeased only by one's mind, for food is scarce. O princess, one is subjected to all kinds of illnesses and mental anguish. Anger, greed, and fear must be completely controlled. A forest is certainly a place of terrible suffering. Therefore, give up this idea of following me there. It is not a secure place for one such as you. Sita's determination remained unshaken. All these dangers will be as nothing to me if I am able to remain by your side. I will, in any event, have no fear whatsoever with you as my protector. Even Indra will not be able to harm me when you are with me. What then of mere beasts? You have always instructed me that a wife can never be independent from her husband, O Rama. Indeed, she is half of his very self. How then can I not be? How then can I not accompany you? Sita remembered how, when she was a young girl, an astrologer had predicted that she would one day have to live in the forest. Surely that time had arrived. She continued to plead with Rama. Was this not an opportunity for her to fulfill her religious duty by following him to the forest? Would not any other course be against virtue? The husband was the wife's supreme deity. Sita's, Sita quoted the scriptures. A chaste woman who remained throughout life by her husband's side surely attained the same destination as him after death. That was her only desire, to be with Rama always. Looking into Rama's eyes, she spoke in a piteous voice. For what reason then, O great hero, will you leave me behind? I, who am devoted and faithful, who shares alike your every pleasure and pain, and who desires to follow the religious path, you should certainly bring me with you. Otherwise, being sorely afflicted, I shall resort to poison, fire, or water in order to bring about my end. Although Sita's lamentation hurt him, Rama did not relent. He tried to pacify and reassure her, but she only became all the more determined to accompany him, hesitated at the thought of separation from her husband. She taunted him. Has my father Janaka obtained as my protector a woman in the form of a man? How, in your absence, could I tolerate the people falsely saying it seems that strength and valor are lacking in Rama, as he could not protect his own dear wife? What fear has assailed you that you now desire to desert me? Although I remain entirely devoted to you, I will not cast my eyes on another man even in thought. How then can you even consider delivering me for protection to another, my oh my lord? Sita continued to besiege Rama. She had no intention of remaining behind without him under any circumstances. Be it heaven or hell, she could only be happy by her husband's side. Sita gazed imploringly at Rama as she begged him to take her with him. Rama was agonized by the thought of leaving behind his beloved wife. He would miss her. Still, he feared her suffering in the forest. His heart ached as she cried out to him. Without you, heaven would be exactly as hell to me, while with you, hell would be the best of all abodes. How can I remain here under the control of those who are inimical to you and have sent you to the forest? If I must watch you to leave, if I must watch you leave without me, then I shall drink poison this very day. I cannot bear the pain of separation from you for even an hour. How then shall I stand it for 14 years? Take me with you, or let me give up my life here and now in your presence. Sita's beautiful face was streaked with tears, which fell continuously from her dark eyes like drops of water from blue lotus flowers. Rama embraced her and gently wiped away her tears. He was still apprehensive about taking her, but he couldn't see her endure the pain of his separation. She was already almost senseless from grief, and he had not even left. What would happen to her during 14 years of his absence? Making up his mind to take her with him, he spoke to her reassuringly. I would find no pleasure even in heaven if I obtained it at the cost of your suffering, O most pious lady. Not knowing your real feelings and being afraid that forest life would cause you pain, I discouraged you from following me. I see now that destiny has decreed you that should dwell, dwell with me in the forest. Follow me, follow me then, O princess, and I shall protect you in strict sorry, accord with the moral laws always followed by the virtuous. Rama made clear his firm intention to go to the deep forest and remain there for the full duration. He wanted Sita to have no doubt of what lay ahead. He was fixed in his determination to obey his parents' command. How could one who disregarded elders and teachers ever hope to please God? Who is not so easily seen or obtained, yet the heaven and the kingdom of God can all be achieved by one who serves his mother, father, and teacher. Explaining all this to his devoted wife, Rama said, not even truthfulness, charity, or sacrifice are comparable to serving one's father and mother. This is the eternal religion. Pious men devoted to serving their parents reach reach the religions reach the regions of gods and beyond. I therefore desire to do exactly what my truthful father has enjoined. I shall go to the forest today. As I see that you are set on following me, my resolve to leave you behind has weakened. O lady of bewitching eyes, I shall take you with me, and together we shall practice asceticism in the deep forest. I am pleased with you, Sita. Your determination to serve me in every circumstance is worthy of your dynasty, and it adds glory to mine. Prepare to leave immediately. Give away all your riches to the Brahmins and go with only a simple dress and no belongings. We shall soon depart. Sita was overjoyed to hear her husband's agreement. Her face bloomed like a full blown lotus. Excitedly, she began following Rama's instructions, giving away all her costly garments and jewels, as well as all the other riches in her palace. In the meantime, Lakshman who had been waiting patiently outside Sita's apartments, saw Rama coming out. He bowed down before Rama and held his feet tightly. If your mind is set upon leaving for the forest, then take me with you, he implored. I shall walk ahead of you, holding my bow and guarding against all dangers. With joy, I shall accompany you through beautiful woods, resounding with the cries of wild animals. Without you, I don't desire even the rulership of all the worlds. Lakshman hoped Rama would approve, but Rama tried to dissuade him. My dearest Lakshman, you are dearer to me than life itself. Always affectionate, devoted to virtue, and firm on the right path, you are my constant and most valued companion. Yet, if you follow me to the forest, who will be left to serve your mother Sumitra and the illustrious Kaushalya? Rama suggested that Kaikeyi would not be kind to her co-wives once her son obtained the kingdom. Bharata would be devoted to his own mother Kaikeyi, and thus the other queens would be neglected. Therefore, Lakshman should remain in Ayodhya to care for Kausalya and Sumitra. By serving Rama's elders, Lakshman would demonstrate his devotion to Rama. Rama concluded, incomparably great religious merit will be earned by you, O noble Lakshman, and our mothers will be saved from suffering. Lakshman was not inclined to accept Rama's advice. How could he live without Rama? In soft but firm words, he argued that Bharata and Shatrughna were both devoted to Rama. They would therefore serve all of Rama's elders equally. Lakshman promised his brother if somehow they become proud and arrogant upon attaining the kingdom, abandoning virtue and neglecting their elders, I will return to punish them. For even while we live in the forest, news of the kingdom will reach us through the sages and ascetics living there. Lakshman had already anticipated Rama's objections and had carefully considered them. There was no doubt in his mind that he should follow his brother. Continuing to reassure Rama, Lakshman reminded him how the king had already arranged more than adequate support for Kaushalya and her dependents. The revenue of thousands of villages was under her control. She was capable of maintaining herself as well as Sumitra and even Lakshman himself. He concluded, therefore, kindly make me your personal attendant, for there will be no unrighteousness in this act. Going before you with my sword, I shall clear a safe path for you and Sita. In wakefulness or sleep, you shall find me by your side, ever ready to do your bidding. Rama was pleased and comforted. Rama was pleased and comforted to hear Lakshman speak. Lakshman was as dear to him as life itself, and Rama had been sad at the prospect of leaving him. Holding Lakshman by the shoulders and looking into his expectant face, Rama said, take leave of your near and dear ones, O my brother, for we shall depart shortly. Lakshman felt a surge of happiness and his limbs trembled. He bowed to his elder brother and asked for his order. Rama asked Lakshman to go to Vasishtha's hermitage, where he had left some divine weapons. There were two celestial bows, along with a pair of inexhaustible quivers, two, impen- two, two impenetrable pieces of body armor, and a pair of long, shining swords. Rama had received these as a dowry from Janaka and had left them with Vasishtha so they could receive daily worship in his hermitage. He said to Lakshman, "Bring all these weapons, dear brother, for I feel we will have need of them soon." Lakshman joyfully went and fetched the weapons. Then he and Rama together began to distribute their wealth to the Brahmins. Many sages came at the time to offer their blessings to Rama, and all of them were given great riches: gold, silver, jewels, pearls, chariots, horses, silken garments, and hundreds of thousands of cows were distributed freely to anyone who came begging charity. Many thousands of Brahmins were given sufficient alms to maintain them for the rest of their lives. Rama's relations and dependents, as well as the needy and afflicted, were also given much wealth. At that time in Ayodhya, there was not a single Brahmin or needy person who was not provided with gifts. Being thus honored and gratified by Rama, they all returned to their own homes, praising him in their hearts. Chapter 10. Sad Farewells. It was time for Rama and his two companions to say their farewells. Holding their weapons and followed by Sita, the brothers made their way towards Dasharatha's palace. As they passed along the road, many men crowded around to watch them. Plunged in sorrow at seeing their beloved prince leaving, they lamented in various ways. Here passes the same Rama who before would move regally in state, followed by a huge retinue, said the people. Now he walks with only Sita and Lakshman as his companions. Although used to every luxury, he is going to the terrible forest in obedience to his father's word. Some citizens censured the king, whom they felt had been gripped by some evil spirit. How could he send his dearest son into exile? Rama's qualities were evident to all: his compassion, learning, gentleness, sense control, and mental peace. All were ever visible in that noble prince. The citizens could not face the prospect of Rama's departure. They felt pain, just as a tree with all its fruits and flowers is hurt when its root is damaged. And they spoke out in public places. We will give up our homes and villages and go with the pious Ram to the forest. Let us share with him all his joys and sorrows. Let Kaikeyi rule over a deserted kingdom bereft of its people. Everyone feared the prospect of Kaikeyi becoming powerful as the mother of the king. They angrily cursed her again and again. All of them would go with Rama. They would abandon the they would they would abandon the city, leaving its houses to be filled with dust and overrun by mice. The forest would become a city and Ayodhya a forest. They would drive out from the forest all the fierce animals and snakes, sending them to live in Ayodhya with Kaikeyi as their protector. The two brothers heard the laments of the people, but they kept their minds under strict control, smiling gently and glancing with affection at the citizens. They walked together like a pair of powerful lions. They entered the Sharada's palace and saw Sumantra, who stood with folded hands and disconsolate face. Rama asked him to announce their arrival to the king. When Sumantra went before Dasharatha, he found the king distracted by grief, heaving deep sighs, his eyes red from weeping. The devoted and faithful Sumantra regarded his master to be like the eclipsed sun or a fire covered by ashes. Bowing at the king's feet, Sumantra said, "The illustrious Rama has distributed all his wealth to his dependents and the Brahmins, and he now stands at your door awaiting your permission to depart for the forest." Ordering his minister to show Rama in, the king also asked that all his wives be present. Sumantra brought the queens, who arrived accompanied by numerous maidservants. He then brought Rama and Lakshman before their father. As Rama entered the room, Dasharatha ran impulsively towards him, but being stricken with sorrow, he fell senseless to the floor. Rama and Lakshman rushed to assist their unconscious father. All the ladies threw up their arms and gave out a wail which mixed with the tinkling of their ornaments. A commotion filled with a commotion filled the room, who with the cries of "Alas, alas, O Rama!" Kaikeyi alone remained unmoved. Rama and Lakshman, both crying, lifted their father and placed him gently on a couch. As the king returned to consciousness, Rama regained his composure and, with folded hands, said, "I have come to take leave of you, father. Please grant me your permission to go to the forest. Also allow Lakshman and Sita, who I could not deter even with great effort, to accompany me. O great king, please give up your grief and look favorably upon us, for we wish now to depart." Rama calmly awaited his father's permission. The king spoke with difficulty. "As a result of a promise made to Kaikeyi, I have lost my good sense. Therefore, my dear Rama, take me captive and rule over this kingdom." Fixed in righteousness, Rama replied, "May you rule the earth for another 1,000 years. I have no desire for sovereignty. After a mere 14 years have passed, I shall return and once more take hold of your feet, having redeemed your pledge, O ruler of men." Dasaratha was mortified. But he saw Kaikeyi urging him on with covert gestures. Bound by the fetters of truth, he spoke to his son, granting him permission to live. Please live with an undisturbed mind, O Rama, and may your journey be a safe and happy one. The king was devastated. He could see that Rama's decision to depart was firm and to be reserved. Rama was devoted to piety and truth. Rama was devoted to piety and truth. Dasharatha requested him to remain for just one night so that he and Kaushalya might see him a little longer. He wanted to offer Rama all enjoyable things on that last day. Trembling with grief, the king said, I swear to you that I never wanted this to happen. I have been obliged by Kaikeyi, who was abandoned virtue after long concealing her evil intentions. Your willingness to accept even this terrible order simply to save me from sin proves beyond doubt your greatness. O gentle Rama, I permit you to leave. Only go tomorrow with my blessings. Hearing of his father's request, Rama became concerned. He didn't wish to delay his departure any longer and said, Who will offer me tomorrow the delights I enjoyed today? The time for my departure has come, and I must now cast aside all thoughts of enjoyment. Let me leave right away. Make over this vast kingdom with all its riches to Bharata. My resolution to live in the forest cannot be swayed. Your boons to Kaikeyi should now be implemented in full. I shall live with ascetics for 14 years, and the world should be given to Bharata. Rama moved closer to his anguished father, who sat shaking his head. He asked the king to be firm and free from sorrow. Rama assured his father that he had no desire at all for the kingdom, nor for any pleasures, nor even for life itself devoid of virtue. He only wished to execute the king's command and prove him true to his word. Confronting, comforting the grieving monarch, Rama said, Since Kaikeyi said to me, Go to the forest, O Raghava, and I replied by saying, I am going, I must now redeem that pledge. Please let me leave. I cannot wait an instant longer. Rama felt sorrow to see his father suffering such intense agony, not wanting to increase his father's pain. However, Rama kept his own feelings in check and maintained a calm expression. He spoke gently, assuring his father that he would certainly enjoy his stay in the forest. He would sport happily with Sita in the many delightful woods and groves, protected by his own weapons and by Lakshman. There would be no fear for them from the beasts and Rakshasas in the forest. When 14 years had passed, the king would find them returned unharmed and ready to serve him again. Bharata alone could competently and righteously rule the globe in his absence. Rama added, I shall never accept the kingdom by bringing infamy to you, O king. Indeed, I could renounce every pleasure, including my own dear wife. In order to satisfy your command, I shall only be happy the moment I enter the forest. You need not feel any pain for me. Be peaceful, my lord, and allow me to live. Dasharatha, tormented by a burning agony, embraced Rama tightly and then again fell unconscious, showing no signs of life. All the queens, along with their maidservants, cried loudly. Kaikeyi felt her purpose fulfilled and was rejoicing inwardly, witnessing her silence. The king's intimate friend, Sumantra, was furious, beating his head, wringing beating his head, wringing his hands, and grinding his teeth. He spoke scathingly, scathingly to her, his eyes blazing with wrath. Here lies your husband, the support of the whole world, betrayed and forsaken by you. O Queen, surely there is nothing sacred for you. I consider you to be the mur- murderess of your husband and the destroyer of your entire race. Do not despise your Lord in this way, for his order is superior to that of even a million suns. Ignoring the time honored rule of primogen- primogeniture, you seek to usurp Rama's rights and bring unbearable pain to the king. Tears flowed from the old minister's eyes as he spoke. He told Kaikeyi to renounce her evil aim. If her son became the king, then no pious man would remain in the kingdom. What joy would she derive from ruling the empty earth which was earned through sin? It was a great wonder that the earth did not split apart and swallow her, or that the great sages did not utter fiery curses to consume her on that very spot. Having served the king all his life, Sumantra felt every pain the king felt as if it were his own. As he addressed Kaikeyi, he could hardly bring himself to look at her. The glorious king will never belay his promise to you. Do not force him to perform an act repugnant to himself and the whole world. Follow the desire of the king and become a protectress of the world. Let Rama be installed on the throne. He will undoubtedly always remain favorable to you in every way. If, however, on your order he is sent to the forest, then your only gain will be unending infamy. Give up your misguided desire, O Kaikeyi, and live happily. Kaikeyi looked coolly at Sumantra, who stood before her with joined palms, and she made no reply. Her mind remained unmoved as she awaited the execution of her order. Seeing her resolve, Dasharatha, who had regained consciousness, sighed and said to Sumantra, "You should immediately order my army to make ready to depart. They should accompany Rama to the forest. So too should wealthy merchants skilled at establishing networks of shops. Search out hunters who know the secrets of forests and send them with Rama. Assemble thousands of capable servants and have them prepared to leave. Indeed, you should arrange for my entire treasury and my granary to be transported along with Rama. He should not have to endure any austerity during the 14 years of exile. As Dasharatha spoke, Kaikeyi became alarmed. The king was going to divest the kingdom of all its wealth before her son was crowned. Dismayed and fearful, she turned towards Dasharatha and spoke, her mouth parched and her voice choked. How can you bestow upon Bharata a kingdom stripped of its wealth? How then you will he actually be the ruler of this world, as you have promised? The king turned angrily towards Kaikeyi. After handing me a heavy burden to bear, you are now lashing me as I carry it. O hostile and vulgar woman. When asking for your boons, you should have stipulated that Rama could not take anything with him to the forest. Abandoning all sense of righteousness, you have taken to a path leading only to grief. I can't stay here with you any longer. Along with all the people of Ayodhya, I shall follow Rama to the forest. Rama approached his father and said politely, O great king, of what use to me in is an army and all your riches? I have renounced the kingdom. How then can I take its wealth? He who has parted with an elephant yet seeks to retain its tether is simply a fool. I am resolved to enter the forest and dwell there with the ascetics, wearing the barks of trees and living on whatever produce I can glean from day to day. Rama wanted to act only in accord with the scriptural instructions regarding the vow of forest life. He told his father that one living in the forest should not do so in great opulence. Rama asked that the king not bestow upon his brother a kingdom bereft of its riches. He would leave with only his weapons and a spade for digging roots. Turning to the king's servants, Rama said, bring me the tree barks, and I shall take off these royal garments and make ready to depart. His request so gladdened Kaikeyi that she personally fetched the Spartan forest clothes made from barks and grasses she had already prepared, shamelessly handing them to Rama, Lakshman, and Sita. She said, put these on. Rama and Lakshman quickly and adroitly changed into those clothes, but the beautiful Sita was perplexed, unsure of how to wear them. Trying again and again to place the bark linen over her other clothes, Sita felt abashed. With her eyes flooded with tears, she said to her husband, how does one wear such dress, my lord? Rama personally fastened the bark over Sita's silk dress. Seeing her clad in forest apparel, her many female servants began to wail piteously. This noble princess has not been ordered to enter the forest, they cried. Dear, dear Rama, please let her remain here with us so we may continue to serve her and enjoy the blessing of seeing her divine form. How can this gentle lady live like an ascetic in the forest? She does not deserve to suffer in this way. Although hearing their loving remonstrances, Rama continued to tie on Sita's forest clothes as she desired. Suddenly, Vasistha became overwhelmed with distress at seeing the gentle Sita about to enter the forest, feeling angered and weeping hot tears. He said to Kaikeyi, "O cruel woman, have you no shame? After deceiving the king and bringing disgrace to your family, are you still not satisfied? Will you stand by and watch as this high-born lady leaves for the forest, wearing the coarse garments you prepared? You did not ask that she be exiled along with Rama. These tree barks are not meant for her. Excellent garments and jewels should be brought by you for your daughter in law. She should proceed to the forest on first class conveniences and accompanied by all her servants." Vasistha loved Rama and Sita like his own children. He could not stand and watch as they departed while the hard-hearted Kaikeyi looked on gleefully. The sage spoke words which pierced Kaikeyi deeply. He explained that according to scripture, the wife was her husband's own self. They were one and the same person. As such, Sita should therefore rule over the kingdom, even if Rama himself couldn't. The forest would become the capital of the world. Indeed, the entire state of Koshala, along with all its people, and the city of Ayodhya would live along with Rama. The sage blazed with anger as he went on, appearing like a smokeless fire. Surely Bharata and his brother Shatrughna will also enter the forest, clad in barks. You may then rule over a desolate kingdom peopled only by trees, which alone could not rise up and follow Rama. Kaikeyi remained silent and looked at Rama and Sita, who were ready to leave. Sita wished only to follow her husband. Even upon hearing Vasistha's words, she was not swayed in the least from her purpose. She stood next to Rama, covered from head to toe in the grass and bark clothes given by Kaikeyi. All the people present then loudly exclaimed, "Shame upon the powerless king, who does nothing to stop this fla- flagrant injustice." Hearing their cries, the emperor became dispirited and lost interest in life. He turned to Kaikeyi and rebuked her for making Sita wear forest garments, but the queen remained silent. Rama came before his father, who sat with his head bent low, and asked his permission to leave. He requested the king to take special care of Kaushalya, whom he feared would suffer in his absence. Looking at his son clad in the dress of hermit, the king fell unconscious. After being brought to his senses by his ministers, who gently sprinkled him with cool water, Dasharatha lamented loudly, "I think in my past life I must have given terrible pain to other living beings, and thus this pain is now being felt by me. Surely life will not leave one until the appointed time arrives. Otherwise, why does death not claim me now, who am who am tormented by Kaikeyi, and beholding my dearest son wearing the robes of an ascetic?" Crying out, "O Rama!" the king broke off, choked with tears. With a great effort, Dasharatha then managed to control his grief and turning towards Sumantra, he said, Fetch here, fetch here the best of my chariots and take the glorious Rama beyond this city. Since I see virtuous and valiant son being exiled to the forest by his own father and mother, I can only conclude that this is the results of piety as declared by the scriptures. Religion is undoubtedly difficult to divine. As Rama and Sita approached the chariot brought by Sumantra, Kaushalya came and tightly embraced Sita, saying, Wicked are those women who forsake their worthy husbands when fallen upon hard times. Even though such women have in the past been protected and afforded every happiness, they malign and even desert their husbands when misfortune arrives. Such women are heartless, untruthful, lusty, and sinful by nature, being quickly estranged in times of trouble. Neither kindness nor education nor gift nor even marriage ties can capture the hearts of these women. Kaushalya loved Sita as a daughter. She knew that Rama's gentle wife was entirely devoted to piety, and she spoke to her only out of motherly affection. She continued, For virtuous women who are truthful, pious, obedient to their elders, and acting within the bounds of morality, the husband is the most sacred object and is never abandoned. Although Rama is being sent to the forest, you should never neglect him. Dear Sita, whether wealthy or without any means whatsoever, he is always your worshipable deity. Sita was filled with joy to hear this advice, which was in accord with her life's aim. Joining her palms, she replied reverentially, I shall surely do all that your honorable self instructs. I have always heard from you proper advice about how to serve my husband. Even in thought, you should not compare me to wicked women, for I am unable to deviate from virtue, even as moonlight cannot be parted from the moon, as a lute is useless without its strings, or a chariot without its wheels. So a wife is destitute when separate from her worthy husband. Having learned from my elders all the duties incumbent upon a wife, and knowing the husband to be a veritable deity, how can I ever neglect Ram? O venerable lady, Kaushalya's heart was touched by Sita's reply, and she shed tears born of both delight and agony, being moved by Sita's piety and at the same time anguished at the thought of her imminent departure. Rama looked with affection at his mother. It was time for him to leave. He feared Kaushalya would pine away after he left. Rama stood before her with folded palms. Please do not show my father's sad expressions, heightening his grief. 14 years will pass quickly even while you sleep. You will rise one morning to find me returned with Sita and Lakshman surrounded by friends and relatives. Rama looked around at all the royal ladies standing there and said, Please forgive by any unkind words or acts which I may have said or done out of ignorance. because we have lived closely together. Now I take leave of you all. A cry rose up. A cry rose up from the ladies that resembled the cry of female cranes. Dasharada's palace, which had always been marked with the joyous sounds of music and festivities, was now filled with the sound of agonized wails. Catching hold of Dasharada's feet, Rama, Sita, and Lakshman took their final leave of him and walked around him in respect. Numbed by grief, Rama bowed to Kaushalya and climbed up onto the chariot, followed by Sita. As Lakshman followed them, his own mother Sumitra came up to say goodbye. Embracing her son, she said, Sir, she said, serve well your elder brother Rama, my dear son. The eternal moral law states that the older brother is the refugee of the younger. Whether in good times or bad, never forget the duties of our race. O Lakshman, which are to practice charity, perform sacrifices for the good of the people, and to lay down one's life on the field of battle. Blinded by tears, Sumitra allowed her son to mount the chariot as she called out, Farewell, dear son, farewell. Always see Rama as you do your father Dasharatha. Look upon Sita as myself, your mother, and see the forest as Ayodhya. Sumantra took up the reins of the horses and urged them forward. The great golden chariot moved ahead with a thunderous rumbling as it passed down the royal highway. The people assembled were stunned with sorrow. Both old and young alike rushed towards the chariot as thirsty men would rush toward water in the desert. Clinging to the sides and the back of the chariot, they looked up at Sumantra, calling out, Hold fast and fast the reins, O charioteer, and drive slowly. We wish to see Rama a little longer. Rama, anxious to be gone as quickly as possible, asked them to desist and told Sumantra to drive more swiftly. Ordered by Rama, move on, and at the same time told by the people who filled the road, stop. Sumantra could do neither. With great difficulty, the chariot pressed slowly forward, seeing Rama leaving and his city plunged into despair. The king fell prostrate. Upon being brought back to consciousness, he got up and, along with Kaushalya, ran after the chariot. Rama looked behind him and saw them trying to make their way through the crowd. He was unable to bear the sight of his father and mother in such distress, but being around by duty, he urged Sumantra ever forward. The charioteer was perplexed, hearing from behind the king calling out, Come back, and then being ordered by Rama to drive quicker, Rama said to him, This pain should not be prolonged further. Make haste. If my father reprimands you, reprimands you when you return, you should simply say you could not hear him.
Okay. धन्यवाद. Finally, breaking free from the crowd, the chariot gathered speed and left the city. Dasrath was still running along the road, his eyes fixed on the dust raised by the chariot's wheels. Breathless and at last losing sight of the chariot in the distance, Dasrath fell down on the road. As he lay there, Kaushalya and Kaikeyi came to raise him up. On seeing Kaikeyi, however, the king became inflamed with anger. "Do not touch me, O sinful woman," he roared. "I never want to see you again. You are neither my wife nor relation, and I have nothing more to say to you. I also reject those who serve and depend upon you. If your son is in any way pleased to receive the sovereignty, then I shall shun him as well." Dasrath gazed at the tracks of the chariot. He covered his face in shame, and blaming himself for Ram's departure, with Kaushalya's help, he slowly made his way back to the palace. As he passed along the road, he saw the city marked by mourning, its shops closed, its streets deserted. Lamenting all the while, Dasrath entered his palace as the sun goes behind a cloud. The great palace was silent and without movement, overlaid with a heavy atmosphere of sorrow. Dasrath went to Kaushalya's apartments and lay down upon the soft couch, cried out, "O Ram, have you really deserted me? Alas, only those who will endure these coming 14 years will be happy, seeing again the face of my gentle son. I cannot tolerate life without that tiger among men. O wicked Kaikeyi, you may rule this kingdom as a widow." Kaushalya looked sadly upon her husband and said, "Having discharged her poison upon Ram, the crooked Kaikeyi will now wander freely like a female serpent who has shed her skin. With Ram exiled and her own son installed as king, surely she will cause further fear to me, even like a snake living in one's own house. How shall I survive without Ram?" Thinking of Ram and Sita entering the forest, Kaushalya cried out in pain. How would they survive exactly at a time when they should have enjoyed the luxuries of life? They were banished and made to live like ascetics. When again would she see them? Surely in some past life, she had committed some grievous sin. For that reason, she now suffered such terrible pain. She lamented loudly, "O Ram, O Lakshman, O Sita, where are you now? The fire of my grief tortures me today as the blazing sun scorches the earth in summer." Sumitra gently reassured Kaushalya, reminding her of the greatness of Ram and Lakshman. Controlling her own grief and sitting next to Kaushalya, she placed her arms around her co-wife. She spoke about Ram, describing his qualities and immeasurable strength, simply to prove his noble father to be perfectly truthful. He had renounced the throne and gone to the forest. This was the path of virtue, followed always by cultured men. That path led only to regions of never-ending happiness. Kaushalya should therefore not pity her son. Sumitra spoke softly. Being ever attended by the loving Lakshman and followed by his devoted wife, Ram will feel no discomfort. Even the sun will withhold its scorching rays from Ram's body, seeing his boundless virtues. A gentle and soothing breeze will always blow softly on Ram. At night, when he lies down to sleep, the cooling rays of the moon will caress him like a loving father. Sumitra stroked Kaushalya's face. She spoke to assuage her own suffering as much as that of Kaushalya. She told Kaushalya not to worry. Ram would surely be protected by the terrible weapons that Vishwamitra gave him. He would dwell fearlessly in the forest just as he would in his own palace. Sumitra concluded, "Knowing the power of that prince, I have no doubt we will see him return as soon as his term of exile is concluded. With Ram as your son, you should not grieve in the least, for your good fortune is very great indeed. Shed your sorrow now, O sinless lady, for all the people must be comforted by you at this time, pained as they are by Ram's separation. Comforted by Sumitra, Kaushalya felt relief and embraced her co-wife tightly. The two queens sat together for a long time, lost in thoughts of Ram. Nearby, the king lay almost unconscious on a couch, repeatedly murmuring Ram's name. Chapter 2, Devastation in Ayodhya. After Ram and his party had gone into the jungle on the other side of the Ganges, Sumantra and Guha spent some time speaking together about Ram. Both were shocked and saddened to realize his firm intention to spend 14 years in the deep forest. They had both been hoping that he would relent and perhaps return to Ayodhya to punish the evil Kaikeyi, who did not deserve any kindness, or he could at least remain with Guha and his people where he could be reached easily. Now he was gone. Guha heard from his spies about Ram's meeting with Bharadvaj and is going on from there to Chitrakoot mountain. Sadly, the Nishada king returned to his own home in the city of Sringavera, from where he ruled over the forest tribes. As the reality of Ram's departure sank in, Sumantra drove the chariot back toward Ayodhya. After 2 days traveling, he arrived to find the city subdued and silent, overpowered by grief. Sumantra entered by the southern gate. As the empty chariot moved along the road, hundreds of and thousands of people approached, crying, "Oh Ram, have you really gone? Where is that faultless hero? Alas, we are forsaken and lost." Sumantra, afflicted at hearing their laments, covered his head with his garment. He felt ashamed to have been the one who took Ram away. He made his way along the royal highway to Dasarath's palace, hearing the wails of the women who stood on the balconies of their houses gazing upon the chariot, now bereft of its passengers. Sumatra reached the palace and went quickly through the first 7 gates, arriving at the 8th, which led to the king's inner chambers. He entered the large room and found the king seated on a couch, pale and withered from grief. The charioteer described his journey from Ayodhya with Ram. Dasarath listened in complete silence, and then, having heard of Ram's definite entrance into the forest, fell senseless to the floor. Seeing their husband fall, the ladies burst into tears. Kaushalya, assisted by Sumitra, lifted him up and said, "Why do you not reply to the charioteer, my lord? He has carried out a most difficult task on your behalf. Are you feeling ashamed for your perpetuating such an unseemly act? Be fixed in your determination, O king, for you have firmly adhered to the truth. Do not submit to this grief, as we who depend upon you will not be able to survive, seeing you filled with such despair." Kaushalya spoke with a faltering voice. Her dear son, who she had not been able to go without seeing for even a day, was now gone for 14 years. She dropped in a faint next to her husband. All the ladies flocked around, sprinkling that cool scented water on the faces of the monarch and his queen, who lay like a god and his consort fallen from heaven. When Dasarath woke from his swoon, he summoned Sumatra, who stood silently nearby. The charioteer was covered in dust and his face was streaked with tears. With folded hands, he stood respectfully before the king. Dasarath sighed dolefully and said to Sumatra, "Where will Ram live now, taking shelter under trees and sleeping on the bare ground? What will he eat? The prince has known only luxury and deserves the best of everything. Formerly, he would always be followed by my great army. How can he live now alone in a desolate forest?" Although Ram and Lakshman had grown up to become fierce fighters to the emperor, they were still his tender young sons. Dasarath could hardly tolerate the thought of their living a life of austerity and abnegation along with the gentle Sita. Anxiously, he imagined the scene facing his 2 boys. How could they survive in the wild among carnivorous animals and venomous snakes? The king continued, "Did you follow them as they walked alone into some bleak and lonely land? What were their last words, O Sumatra? Pray tell me what they uttered as they were leaving, for this shall be my only sustenance for the coming 14 years." Dasarath stood up and looked into the charioteer's face, whose head hung down and who was shaking with sorrow. With a choked voice, Sumatra replied to the king, "The ever-truthful Ram asked me to touch yours and Kaushalya's feet on his behalf, O great king. He requested me to convey his fond farewell to all the ladies in the royal court, who are to Ram just like his own mother." After bowing at the feet of the king and queen, Sumatra continued to speak with difficulty, describing his parting from Ram and the others. Faithfully, he recounted the exact message the 2 princes had given him. Ram, who was consistently shedding tears as he spoke, asked that Bharat be quickly installed as the prince regent. He left instructions that Bharat should accord all respect to his aged father and to all his mothers, especially the grief-stricken Kaushalya. The charioteer then recalled the final angry words of Lakshman. When Ram stopped speaking, Lakshman, hissing like an enraged cobra, said, "For what offense has this virtuous prince For what offense has this virtuous prince been exiled? The king has carried out Kaike's order without considering its merit. Regardless of his reasoning, I find no justification whatsoever for the emperor's decision to send away the sinless Ram. Ram's exile will end in remorse. It contradicts all good sense and is against tradition and even scripture. Having performed an act which has caused nothing but pain to all the people, how can father remain as the king any longer? Indeed, I cannot even see in him the qualities of a father. For me, Ram alone is my brother, master, and father." Sumatra, having summoned up the vehemence with which Lakshman had spoken, calmed himself down and described his last sight of Sita. "The blessed Princess Sita stood silent as I prepared to leave. as though her mind were possessed by an evil spirit. She remained motionless and distracted, heaving deep sighs. Gazing upon her husband's face, she suddenly burst into tears, covering her own face with her two bejeweled hands, which looked like two white lotuses. When the three of them stood watching as I drove away, Dasrath asked Sumatra to describe his return journey, and the charioteer replied, I remained with Guha for 3 days, hoping and praying that Ram would return. Finally, I concluded that I would not see him again until the full 14 years had expired. I yoked up the chariot and urged the horses to move, but they remained stationary, shedding tears of grief. After much cajoling, they finally moved, and I proceeded on the path back to Ayodhya. Sumatra stopped speaking for some time as he struggled to control his feelings. After sipping a little water, he continued to describe the scene he had witnessed on his return. On all sides in the kingdom, he saw signs of grief and separation from Ram. Even the trees with their flowers and leaves looked withered. The lakes and rivers were dried up, and everywhere there were beasts and birds, entirely immobile, not even searching for food. The woods were silent and gave off none of their former fragrance. The parks and gardens in the city appeared desolate and deserted. No one greeted him as he entered Ayodhya. Everywhere were sighing men and women lost in thoughts of Ram. As they saw the empty chariot, they let out tremendous cries of grief. Even the animals wore wretched expressions. On the tops of high buildings, he saw noble ladies gazing mutely at each other, their eyes overflooded with tears. The city appeared devoid of all happiness, looking exactly like the Empress Kaushalya bereft of her beloved son. After Sumatra stopped speaking, Dasrath became pensive, feeling extreme regret. How had he stood by as Ram had left? Why did he not reprimand the wicked Kaikeyi? He cursed his foolish attachment to virtue that brought about such an unvirtuous end. Where was the truth in banishing the truthful Prince Ram? In a piteous voice, the king explained, it was out of infatuation for my wife alone that I exiled Ram. I did not speak any counsel with my ministers and wise advisors being dictated to by sinful Kaikeyi. Dasrath wondered how he could have acted so contrary to his own good senses and wisdom. Surely this great calamity had suddenly happened by the will of Providence, simply to destroy his race. The king sighed, feeling helpless in the hands of fate. Turning to Sumatra, Dasrath said, O charioteer, if I have ever done you any good turn, then please quickly take me to Ram. My mind is drawn irresistibly to the prince. If I am still king today, then let anyone fetch Ram back to Ayodhya. I shall not survive for even an hour longer without Ram. Where is that Ram, whose shining face is adorned with pearl-like teeth? Maybe that mighty-armed prince has gone far into the woods by now. Bring me a chariot, and I shall immediately make haste to see him. If I do not soon catch sight of Ram, I shall reach death's abode this very day. Dasrath had been hoping beyond hope that Sumatra might somehow have returned with his sons. Realizing the finality of Ram's departure, the king gave full vent to his terrible grief. O Ram, Lakshman, O Sita, what could be more painful for me than not seeing you here? You do not know that I am dying from agony, like a lost and forlorn creature. The emperor fell senseless onto a couch. Close to him, Kaushalya tossed about on the floor as though possessed by a spirit. Seeing Sumatra, she exclaimed, Charioteer, yoke up the chariot and take me to Ram, for I shall not live another moment without him. Where now is my son reposing, his head placed upon his head placed upon his mighty arm? When again will I see his charming features surrounded by curling black locks? I think my heart is as hard as a diamond. Otherwise, why does it not shatter to pieces, even though I do not see Ram? Sumatra felt all the more agonized himself as he saw the grief of the king and queen. He tried to comfort Kaushalya. I think your son will settle happily in the forest along with Lakshman and Sita. Indeed, I did not detect in them any dejection at the prospect of living as ascetics. Shaking off their grief, They appeared pleased upon approaching the forest. Sita seemed especially happy, much delighted at the sights and sounds of the woods. Kaushalya, not appeased by Sumatra's kind words, turned toward Dasarath, admonishing to him out of grief and love, "My lord, you are famous in all the three worlds for your compassion and kindness, yet you thoughtlessly banished your faultless son. How will your two gentle boys, ever accustomed to luxury, live like hermits? How will the frail Sita, a child of mere 16 years, survive the ravages of forest life? She has always been offered the very best of cooked foods and will surely not survive on wild roots. How will she bear the terrible roars of lions and tigers?" Kaushalya became increasingly angry as she spoke. Her eyes reddened and black streaks of colorium ran down her cheeks. She censured Dasarath for his cruelty. "You have utterly divested Ram of his right to be king," she cried. "Even after returning to Ayodhya, Ram will surely not accept the kingdom. High-class men can never enjoy items left by others. Ram will therefore not accept the kingdom left by his younger brother, even as a tiger would not eat food brought to him by another animal." Kaushalya's mind was absorbed in thoughts of her son, and she raved inconsolably. How could Dasarath have perpetrated such an evil act? Kaushalya railed at the king, holding her head in her hands. "Rama has been ruined by his own father, even as a brood of fish are swallowed by their father. I believe, my lord, that you can no longer tell right from wrong. The main support for a woman is her husband. The son is the second. Therefore, like Ram, I am also ruined, my husband having lost his good sense and my son gone away. This whole kingdom has been ruined by you. All your people have been destroyed. Only Kaikeyi and her son are happy." Kaushalya stopped speaking and began to sob uncontrollably. Dasarath, already deeply remorseful, felt even more anguish upon hearing his wife's words. Crying out, "Oh, Ram!" again and again, he sat disconsolate. With great difficulty, he gathered his senses and went before Kaushalya with folded hands, speaking in a trembling voice, his head hanging down. "Be kind to me, O godly lady. You are merciful even to your enemies. What then to speak of me? The husband is always the lord for his wife in good or evil times. Seeing me to be sorely pained, you should not increase my grief by such harsh words." Kaushalya immediately felt sorry. She took Dasarath's hands and folded them around her head. Kneeling before him and weeping, she spoke hurriedly through her confusion. "Now I am surely ruined for having spoken words disagreeable to my husband. I deserve to be punished by you, who I know to be always truthful. She is a wicked and low-born woman who must be beseeched by her worthy and virtuous husband." Kaushalya was afflicted by many strong feelings, and her mind became completely distracted. Her grief, despair, and anger at losing Ram were now compounded by remorse and guilt at having upset Dasarath. She had spoken in an almost hysterical manner. "Pray forgive me, O great king. Overcome by grief, I uttered unseemly words. Grief destroys patience, eradicates knowledge, and confounds the senses. Indeed, there is no enemy like grief. Even a great blow from an enemy can be endured, but the smallest amount of grief is intolerable. The 5 nights that Ram has been gone seem to me like 5 years. Even as I remember Ram again, my grief grows like the ocean receiving the rapid flow of many large rivers." As Kaushalya was speaking, the sun set. Dasarath, being comforted by his wife, fell into a fitful slumber for an hour. Upon awakening, he sat sighing and recalled something he had done when he was a young prince, realizing that long past deed to be the cause of his present suffering. Dasarath related it to Kaushalya. "Without doubt, a person receives the results of his own actions, good or bad, O gracious queen," the king said. "He who acts without consideration of the results, both immediate and long-term, is surely a fool. If a man cuts down a mango grove because the trees have unattractive blossoms, planting instead the brightly flowering palash tree, he will later lament when the bitter fruits of the palash appear. By sending Ram away, I have indeed cut down a mango grove just as if it was about to bear fruit. Now I am tasting the bitter palash." Dasrath felt as if his heart would burst. He maintained his composure with great effort and continued. A long time ago, as a youth and before we were married, I went to the forest to hunt. I had acquired great skills at bowmanship and could easily hit even an invisible target by its sound alone. Little did I know that the skill of mine, of which I was so proud, would yield such a disastrous result. It was rainy season, and the rivers were swollen. Going out at night on my chariot, I made my way to the Sarayu. I waited there in the darkness by the riverbank for a buffalo or an elephant to come by. Soon I heard the sound of gurgling at a point nearby, although I could not see what caused the sound. Thinking the sound to be that of an animal drinking, I took out an arrow and released it. From the quarter where I shot my snake-like arrow came a loud wail of some forest dweller. In distinct, pain-filled tones, I heard the following cry. How has this weapon fallen upon a harmless ascetic like myself? To whom have I given offense? I am a simple seer, has forsworn violence and lives only on fruits and roots. Oh, I am killed. What foolish person has hurled this arrow? This act will result only in evil. I do not grieve so much for myself, but for my aged and helpless parents. Without me, their sole support, how will they survive? With a single arrow, some ignorant fool of uncontrolled mind has killed me and both my parents. Weeping all the while, Dasrath continued. When I heard that plaintive shout, I was mortified. My bow and arrows fell from my hands. I was all but overwhelmed with grief and dropped to the ground. After losing my senses, I scrambled toward the source of the voice with my mind utterly perplexed. There, lying on the bank of the river, was an ascetic wearing tree bark garments. My arrow was protruding from his chest, smeared with dust and blood, which his thick mass of matted hair in disarray. He lay groaning. He had come for water, and the sound I had heard was the gurgling of his pitcher, which lay nearby with its water run out. Seeing me to be royalty, the ascetic looked upon me with bloodshot eyes and spoke angrily. What wrong have I done, O king, that I should receive this terrible punishment? I came here to fetch water for my blind parents. Even now, as I lie here dying, my poor father must be wondering where I am. What can he do? He is old and feeble, cannot even move. He cannot no more help me than could any tree help another which is about to be hewn down. Seek his forgiveness, O king. You should quickly make your way along this path to where he waits. Paused by remembering this long past unfortunate incident. With difficulty, he continued to speak. The young hermit, writhing in agony, asked me to extract the arrow. I hesitated, knowing that the instant the arrow was removed, he would die. The boy reassured me, telling me that he was prepared for death. I thus pulled out the arrow. Looking at me in dismay due to anxiety about his parents, the boy died, uttering the name of Vishnu. Seeing the ascetic lying dead, killed by me out of ignorance and folly, I wondered how I could make amends. I quickly filled his pitcher and followed the path he had shown me toward his parents. As I reached the hermitage, I saw his aged and blind parents sitting forlorn like a pair of birds whose wings had been clipped. When he heard me approach, the boy's father said, "Do not delay, my son. Bring the water immediately. Your poor mother is in anxiety because you have been sporting in the river for a long time. Our lives depend on you, dear child. You are our only support, indeed, our very eyes. Where are you? Why do you not speak?" I was gripped by fear to behold the sage, and I replied to him in a faltering voice, "O holy sage, I am not your son, but a prince named Dasrath. When he heard my story, the sage, though rich in ascetic power and thereby capable of burning me with a curse, restrained himself, sighing in sorrow, with his face bathed in tears. That old rishi, who appeared exceptionally glorious, said to me, "Had you not come here and confessed, then as soon as the news of my boy's death reached me, your head would have been split into 100 pieces by my anger. Indeed, if one consciously kills a hermit engaged in austerity, then death is the immediate result. You are only surviving now as you perform the deed in ignorance. The sage asked me to take him to the place where his son lay. I immediately lifted both of the elderly ascetics onto my arms and carried them to the riverbank. Being placed near the dead boy, they cried out in agony and gently stroked his face. The sage said, "Why do you not greet us today, dearest child? Why are you lying here upon the ground? Have you become displeased with us? Here is your beloved mother. Why do you not embrace her, my tender son? Please speak to us, whose heart-moving voice will we now hear beautifully reciting the holy Vedic text? Who now will tend the sacred fire? Who will comfort us with consoling words, deprived as we are now of our only support? My son, how will I be able to support your old mother?" The sage sat weeping for some time, lost in grief. Holding his son's head, he said, "Pray wait a while, dear boy, and do not yet proceed to Yamaraj's abode. I shall go with you and speak to the god on your behalf, saying, although my son has been killed as a result of some former sin, he has in fact become sinless. Therefore, grant him those regions which are attainable only by Brahmins perfect in asceticism and study of scripture, or by heroes who drop their body while fighting fearlessly for the good of the people." Waiting piteously, the ascetic and his wife offered sanctified water to their dead son with mantras and prayers. I then saw the boy appear in the ethereal form along with Indra, the king of heaven. He gently consoled his parents, saying that he had achieved his exalted status as a result of his service to them. He said they would soon join him in heaven. The boy then seated next to Indra in a shining celestial car. At that time, the sages said to me, in order to release you from the terrible sin of killing an ascetic, which can drag even the gods down to hell, I shall pronounce upon you a painful curse, just as I am dying now in the agony of separation from my son. So in the future shall you die in the grief of separation from your son. After saying this, the sage had me light a fire and place it upon his son's body. Along with his wife, he then entered the fire. The two ascetics gave up their body and went to heaven, leaving me stunned and pondering the sage's words. Dasrath was suddenly afraid as he realized that in accord with the sage's infallible curse, his death was now near. Controlling his mind, he called out for Kaushalya. His eyes were blinded with tears and his body was trembling. He said to his wife, "That curse uttered so long ago by the sage is now coming to pass. I shall soon die of grief. Come here, Kaushalya, for I cannot see you clearly. Men on the threshold of death have all their senses confounded." Kaushalya sat close to her husband and comforted him with soft words. Dasrath became deeply absorbed in remembrance of Ram. He longed for one last sight of him. He felt anguished and remorseful, wishing he had somehow been able to stop Ram from leaving. The king lay back on the couch and spoke in a trembling voice. "This grief is drying up my vitality, even as the blazing summer sun sucks out the earth's moisture. Blessed are they who will see the pious and handsome Ram return 14 years from now. I can no longer see or hear anything. All my senses are failing along with my mind, just as the bright rays of a lamp disappear when its oil has run out. This grief, born of my own self, is rendering me helpless and unconscious, just as the current of a swift river wears away its own bank. O Ram, reliever of my suffering, are you really gone? O Kaushalya, my dear wife, O Sumitra, pious lady, O Kaikeyi, my sworn enemy and disgrace of my family." Dasrath lamented and tossed about in agony for some time. Gradually he became silent, his mind fixed only upon Ram. Stricken with intolerable pain of separation, the great emperor gave up his life during the night and ascended to the highest abode of the Supreme Lord. Chapter 3. The following morning, large numbers returned. The following morning, large numbers of singers and bards assembled at the palace with the intention of waking the king. They stood near his quarters and began their recitations, praising the emperor and telling his ancestors' glorious deeds. Holy Brahmins chanted sacred texts, while expert musicians played on various instruments. Those chants and songs, mixed with the singing of the birds on the palace trees, created an exquisitely beautiful sound. The palace attendants, unaware of the king's demise, gathered together with items required for his morning ablutions. Gold pots filled with scented water, along with many soaps and unguents, were fetched. In accordance with the Vedic tradition, young virgin girls, along with milk cows and other pure items like gold and silver, were brought before the king, so that he would see these immediately upon awaking, thereby creating an auspicious start to the day. When everything was made ready just before sunrise, royal ladies went into the king's chamber to wake him. As they approached his bed, they saw him lying motionless and showing no symptoms of life. Nearby, Kaushalya and Sumitra were lying asleep, exhausted from grief. Their faces were tear-streaked and withered like lotuses scorched by the sun. The palace ladies fell back in alarm and began to shake like reeds in a stream. They touched the king's body and, finding him cold and lifeless, realized he had died from grief. All those beautiful women began to wail loudly, like a herd of female elephants who have lost their lord in the forest. Kaushalya and Sumitra were aroused by the sound. Looking at the emperor and touching him, they cried out, "My lord!" and dropped to the ground. Kaikeyi ran into the room, and she too became afflicted with pain and sorrow, falling down unconscious. The three queens tossed about on the ground, lamenting loudly. They appeared like three goddesses fallen from heaven, deprived of their splendor. The whole chamber became crowded with men and women, all alarmed, but bustling about excitedly. With the sudden death of the king, everyone became perplexed and confused. Loud cries filled the air. The king's 300 maidservants surrounded him on all sides, weeping piteously. Kaushalya looked at her husband's face, which seemed like the sun shorn of its luster. Kneeling by his side, she held his head and began to loudly reprimand Kaikeyi. "O cruel Kaikeyi, are you now satisfied? Having killed the king, you may now enjoy the throne without fear. Ram has forsaken me and gone to the forest, and now my husband has ascended to heaven. I cannot live any longer, O Kaikeyi. Only Kaikeyi, casting all propensity to the wind, could happily live after seeing her husband die in agony. O cruel lady, you have destroyed our noble race." Kaushalya embraced her dead husband. She thought of Ram, Sita, and Lakshman. How would they learn of their father's death? What will they do when they hear of it? Even now, poor Sita must be clinging fearfully to Ram, terrified by the sights and sounds of the forest. In this painful news reaching her, surely she will die. Kaushalya could not tolerate any more grief. Tearfully, she cried out to Kaikeyi, "You have killed me as surely as you have killed the king. I shall enter the fire clinging to my lord's body." With difficulty, the king's ministers separated Kaushalya from Dasarath. They gently removed her from his chamber and began to perform the necessary rituals for the death of the king. As none of Dasarath's sons were present, they could not perform his funeral. Therefore, in order to preserve the body until Bharat arrived, they immersed it in a vat of fragrant oil. The king of Ayodhya, already plunged in sorrow, became even more, the city of Ayodhya, already plunged in sorrow, became even more desolate. The people cried out their distress, and everything remained still, no one going out for any business. The great city looked like a dark, dark night, bereft of the moon and stars. Loudly reproaching Kaikeyi in choked voices, the citizens grieved throughout the day and night, finding no rest. The following day, the king's Brahmin counselors assembled together. Looking toward Vasishta, who was temporarily carrying out the king's duties, the wise sages made different speeches, pointing to the need for a prince to be quickly coronated. The sages described how without a ruler, the kingdom would soon meet with ruin. In a land without a king, even the rain would not fall in proper time, and the crops would fail. Sons would disobey their fathers and wives their husbands. There could be no personal property without a protector, and men could not sleep in peace. Everything would become chaotic, and anarchy would soon prevail. Like fishes, men would devour one another. Atheism would become prominent. and godless and misbehaved men would become leaders. One of the chief Brahmins concluded, even as the eyes protect the body, so the king is ever vigilant to protect the people. The king is truthfulness and virtue incarnate. He is the mother and the father and the best benefactor of all men. All the principal gods reside in the body of the king. Indeed, he is the powerful representative of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Therefore, O Vashishta, have Bharat and Shatrughna brought home. Quickly crown a qualified man as king before this ancient and prosperous kingdom is thrown into utter confusion and darkness. When the Brahmin sages had finished speaking, they sat awaiting Vashishta's opinion. Vashishta looked around the assembly and replied, "We should immediately send swift messengers to the Kakaya capital, Girivraj. Since the emperor has bestowed this kingdom upon Bharat, he must be brought here as quickly as possible and installed as king. No other course of action can be considered." Vashishta wanted Bharat to be brought home before the news of his father's death and Ram's exile reached him. Bharat would be informed of the heartbreaking news while surrounded by his intimate family. Vashishta said to the messengers, "Tell the prince that all is well, but that he is required for some urgent business. Take with you excellent gifts for the Kakaya king and leave at once." The messengers mounted upon the best of the king's horses, which were capable of covering hundreds of miles a day, and sped westwards towards Girivraja. They took the shortest possible route, at times leaving the road and traversing on open countryside and woods. They crossed the Malini River, which flowed between Aparatala and Pralamba mountains, and also the Ganges, where it flowed through Hastinapur. Moving quickly through the Panchala and Kuru Jungala provinces, the messengers reached the Sardanda River at the end of the second day. After crossing that river, they entered the city of Kalinga, hardly pausing for a moment. Galloping together, they passed through the city and soon crossed the Ikshumaki River, then the Beas and Salmali rivers. Finally, arriving at the Kakaya district at the end of the third day, with their horses all but exhausted, they entered the city of Giriraj and went straight toward the king's palace. Galloping together, they passed through the city and soon crossed the Ikshumaki River, then the Beas and Salmali rivers, finally arriving in Kakaya district and the end of the third day. With their horses all but exhausted, they entered the city of Giriraj and went straight toward the king's palace just as dawn approached. His palace, Bharat had just risen and was feeling disturbed. He had woken from a dream filled with inauspicious omens. He sat alone, sunk in thought. Some of his friends approached him and inquired why he looked so sad. Bharat replied, "In a dream, I saw my father looking dejected, falling from the peak of a mountain into a filthy pool. He seemed to be laughing and he swam around in the pool. I then saw the ocean dry, the moon fallen upon the earth and the entire world assailed by demons. My father, dressed in black, wearing a crimson garland and smeared with red sandal paste, got up upon a chariot drawn by donkeys and rode southward. Bartlett knew the science of omens and dreams. He understood that these visions clearly indicated his father's death, or perhaps the death of one of his brothers. Sighing heavily, the prince continued, "My throat feels parched, and I am gripped by anxiety. Suddenly, I hate myself for no reason. Surely some great calamity is imminent." As Bard spoke, a messenger entered his room to announce the arrival of envoys from Ayodhya. He came before Bharat and bowed low, touching his feet and saying, "We have been sent by the sage Vashishta. He sends word that all is well, but he requires your immediate presence in Ayodhya for some urgent business." On behalf of Dasarath, the envoys presented their gifts to the Kakaya king and his son. The messengers were feeling fatigued from their journey, so Bharat had them seated and served the best food and drink. He tried to find out from them the exact nature of the business which Vasisht was summoning him. Thinking of his dream, he asked about his father and other dear relatives. The messengers answered his questions politely, carefully avoiding telling him about his father's death or Ram's exile. Bharat could nevertheless sense that something was terribly wrong. He wanted to depart immediately, and he went to King Aswapati, requesting his permission to leave. The king embraced him and said, "In you, my daughter Kakaya is blessed with a noble son. Leave now with my blessings, but return again when your business is complete." The king of Kakaya presented Bharat with many gifts to take to Ayodhya. Huge elephants, horses, costly cloth, and much gold were given by King Ashwapati. He also quickly arranged for a detachment of his best soldiers to accompany Bharat. Bharat received the gifts with gratitude to the best of his ability, but his mind was distracted. He was anxious and could not wait to depart. Taking leave of his friends and relations, Bharat mounted his chariot along with Shatrughna, and they hurriedly left, followed by hundreds of other chariots, as well as by thousands of elephants and horses gifted by the king. The prince of Ayodhya went out of the city looking like a god, leaving the heavenly city of Indra. For 7 days, Bharat and his party traveled to Ayodhya. The prince longed to race ahead, taking the shorter route through the woods, as did the messengers from Ayodhya, but he was hampered by his large retinue. They went along the established roads and passed through many villages and towns, but they did not stop anywhere. Bharat's mind was filled with apprehension. What could possibly be wrong, especially in the presence of Ram and Lakshman? Had their father died? Was some powerful enemy besieging the city? Perhaps it was simply that his father wished to install Ram as the king. But why had the messengers not told him? As the party reached the territory of Koshal, Bharat urged on his charioteer. His chariot went quickly ahead, leaving the army headed by Shatrughna to follow slowly behind. He soon arrived at Ayodhya. Looking at the city from a distance, Bharat said to his charioteer, "Something is surely amiss in this great and glorious city. I do not hear the usual clamor of men, nor the sound of sacred recitations made by throngs of Brahmins as they perform sacrifices. Even the animals are silent. No one is moving about on the roads, and no one has come out to greet me." As they passed along the main road into the city, Bart became even more concerned. Where were the young couples who would always sport romantically in the gardens lining the road? The trees in whose desert gardens, with their leaves falling around, seemed to Bart to be weeping. As he rode quickly into the city, he saw all various ill omens. Crows and vultures cried on all sides. The sun was enveloped in dark clouds, and a chill wind blew, raising up clouds of dust and leaves. Bharat reached the city's western gate. The guards, gladdened to see him, welcomed him with loud shouts. The prince moved on politely, greeting the sentries. He was tired, and his mind was dejected and disturbed. He spoke again to his charioteer. "Why have I been suddenly brought here, O noble? I wonder what terrible calamity has occurred, even without any apparent cause. My heart is sinking. My mind is consumed by fear." The prince looked around as the chariot sped toward Dasarath's palace. He saw signs which seemed to him to indicate the king's death. Houses were unswept, dirty looking and bereft of splendor, their doors standing wide open. There was no smoke from the sacrificial fires rising up, nor the usual sweet aroma of aloe and sandalwood drifting from the mansions along the road. Men and women were standing here and there wearing soiled clothes and looking pale and emaciated as if they had not eaten for days. Bharat looked at the closed shop fronts and abandoned marketplaces, the temples with their dusty courtyards, and the deities without fresh dresses or garlands. Everything seemed desolate. Filled with sorrow to see the unprecedented state of his beloved city, the prince arrived at Dasarath's palace. Bharat went quickly into his father's room and was alarmed to find the king not present. Everyone looked down to avert his gaze. The palace ladies were weeping, and a sorrowful silence had replaced the normal sound of drums, lutes, and Vedic recitations. Bharat felt his stomach sink and his limbs seemed to dissolve. Too afraid to ask about his father from the people present, he ran to his mother's apartments. As he entered, Kaikeyi sprang up from her golden seat. Bharat bowed and touched his mother's feet, and she embraced him. It had been a long time since she had seen him. Holding her son and seeing him on her lap, Kaikeyi inquired, "How was your journey, my son? You must be tired. Are your grandfather and uncle both well? Have you fared well yourself while living in their kingdom? I have missed you here." After hearing her endearing questions, Bharat told her everything about himself, still filled with apprehension. He asked, "How is it that I do not see the king seated here with you? Where indeed is my pious father? Why do I find everyone looking disconsolate, not speaking? I long to grasp my father's feet. Tell me, gentle mother, is he just now in Kaushalya's apartment?" Possessed by greed for the kingdom, Kaikeyi began to tell her son terrible news as if it were agreeable and pleasant. "Your high-souled and glorious father, who is always the shelter of all living beings, has attained the state of the gods. His kingdom is now yours." Bharat looked at his mother in disbelief. He fell to his knees, crying out, "Alas, I am ruined." He struck his arms on the floor. His worst fear was confirmed, his mind confused and agitated. Bharat lamented, "This golden couch would always appear beautiful, being adorned with the king's presence. Now it appears dark and lusterless like the night sky bereft of the moon. Oh, where is my noble father?" Bharat covered his handsome face with a cloth and cried in anguish. Seeing her son, whose body shone like that of a god, laying on the floor in a wretched state, Kaikeyi raised him and said, "Get up, O king. Why are you lying here like one unfortunate? Virtuous souls like you are never overwhelmed by grief. Steady your mind, which is always fixed in piety and knows the truth. This wide earth now awaits your rule, O sinless one." Bharat wept for some time, unable to speak. He remembered his father's love and affection, and how the king had personally trained him in statecraft, how they had played and sported together, the times he had sat with his father as he related tales of their great ancestors. Now he was gone. How could it have happened? Bharat could not understand why no one had called him earlier. Calming his mind, he said, "Having speculated that the king was to install Ram as the prince regent, I came here swiftly. It seems my calculation was wrong, as I do not see either my father or Ram." The prince was confused. His mother sat calmly as he spoke out his grief. "Oh, what disease did my father die? Oh, mother, how fortunate are Ram and Lakshman that they were able to perform the last rites of the great monarch. Or is my father still present? Surely he does not know I have arrived, or else he would have come quickly to see me, embracing me and offering his blessings. Where is that gentle hand which would often brush me off when I would fall in the dust as a child?" Bharat looked up into his mother's face, his eyes streaming. "Please announce my arrival to Ram. For a man who knows what is right, the elder brother is as good as father. I shall fall at Ram's feet and ask him what final words were spoken by the righteous and ever truthful king. I wish to hear my father's last kind message to me." Kaikeyi slowly replied to her son, telling him the course of events exactly as they occurred. "The glorious king, the best among the wise, departed from this world calling out, 'O Ram, O Sita, O Lakshman.' Bound by the laws of time, even as a powerful elephant is bound by ropes, the king submitted to death by saying, 'Only those men who will see Ram returned with Sita and Lakshman will have their desires fulfilled and be happy.'" Hearing this news, Bharat became even more confused. What did the king mean? Where were his brothers and Sita? he asked his mother. Kaikeyi began to relate how they had left for the forest, speaking as if it were something Bharat would be pleased to hear. Prince Ram, with Sita and Lakshman, left the city clad in tree barks. They have gone to a distant forest and will remain there for 14 years. Bharat was shocked. How could it be true? Surely Ram would not have been exiled. What crime could he possibly have committed? The prince spoke in amazement. Did Ram wrongly seize property from some elevated Brahmin? Did my brother somehow kill a sinless man? Surely he did not look longingly upon another's wife. I cannot imagine Ram ever doing anything even remotely sinful. Why then has he gone into exile accompanied by the delicate Sita and his loyal brother? Kaikeyi completely misunderstood Bharat's mood. Out of ignorance, she imagined he would not be pleased to hear that. He would be pleased. Thanks to her machinations, he had become undisputed ruler. She smiled as she spoke to her son. Ram has committed no sin. However, entirely neglecting your noble self, the king was intent upon installing him as the prince regent. As soon as this news reached me, I asked your father to send Ram away and install you instead. Bharat's face froze as his mother continued. Bound by truthfulness, the emperor did my bidding and granted me 2 boons, which were owed from a former occasion. After exiling Ram, who was followed by Sita and Lakshman, the king was sorely afflicted with an unbearable grief. Overwhelmed with pain and constantly calling Ram's name, the Lord of Ayodhya left this world and ascended to heaven. Kaikeyi saw Bharat's pained expression. Do not yield to grief, dear son. This city is indeed, this earth now depend upon you. Be firm and perform your father's funeral ceremony, O Bharat. Then assume the throne as the undisputed ruler of the globe. Bharat could not believe what he was hearing. Had his mother gone mad? Did she really think he envied Ram and coveted the throne? Covering his face with his hands and slowly shaking his head, he replied to the shameless Kaikeyi, what came into your mind, O cruel woman, that you could have perpetrated such an act? What possible gain is there for me in having sovereignty of the earth while I stand deprived of my dearest relations? By sending my father to the next world and Ram to the forest, you have heaped calamity upon calamity. The prince was infuriated. His mother's actions were unforgivable. Kaikeyi shrunk back as he roared, piercing her with volleys of words. You have appeared in my family like the goddess Kalaratri, the night of universal dissolution. Having clasped you to his bosom, my father has brought about his own death and the extermination of his race. O woman who sees evil where there is none, you have ended my family's joy through greed alone. Tell me the reason that impelled you to kill the king and exile the sinless Ram. Against her son's vehement reaction, Kaikeyi tried to defend herself. She spoke candidly, telling him about her conversation with Mantara. O prince, I would surely have said nothing to your father, but Mantara pointed out how you were being wrong. My dear son, I simply acted with your interests in mind. This only angered Bharat all the more. In grief and anger, he stood blazing like fire. With copper-red eyes, he gazed at his mother, who sat on a couch with her head cast downwards. Alas, he continued, his voice incredulous, I am shamed by my own mother. Having got you for their co-wife, the godly Kaushala and Sumitra have been tormented with agony. How did you not grieve, O hard-hearted one, when you saw those gentle ladies weeping as their heroic sons left for the forest? Are you happy to see your husband lying dead, Ram and Sita and Lakshman banished, and your remaining family seized with unbearable pain? Bharat wept aloud while Kaikeyi sat silently. He was astonished at his mother's deeds. What on earth had possessed her? She had never acted like this before. She had always loved Ram as much as her own son. How could she possibly think it would please him to gain the sovereignty in this terrible way? Bharat went on fiercely. Blinded by lust, you have clearly not understood my devotion to Ram. I will never take this kingdom in his absence. My strength and intelligence depend upon my powerful brother. Ram should certainly become the king while I become his humble servant. I can no more take the weight of the kingdom than a young calf can take the load borne easily by a bull. Even if I were to rule without Ram, I will never allow you to achieve your cherished end. I would sooner die. Bharat's mind raged. Kaikeyi's insane action had to be somehow reversed. He resolved to go immediately to the forest and find Ram. He first had to establish to Ram and Kaikeyi's abhorrent acts had nothing to do with him. What must Ram be thinking? Surely he would not believe that his own devoted brother was in any way guilty. Did anyone think that? Bharat was horrified. He rounded on Kaikeyi again. I cannot stand by and watch the path morality be abandoned as a result of your sinful desires. The eternal code prescribes that the king's eldest son should inherit the throne, especially when that son is the most highly qualified and beloved of all the people. I shall doubtlessly bring back Ram from the forest. O evil-minded one, you will never see me installed as the king. Bharat continued to reproach his mother with sharp words. Kaikeyi remained silent, her mind bewildered, and Bharat's reaction was quite unexpected, and she did not know how to reply. Bharat shook his head. Since you have committed a hideous sin, you shall surely reside in hell. There you will wail endlessly with none of your desired objects attained. Do not say anything to me, evil lady. I hereby desert you. You are neither my mother nor the emperor's wife. Without a doubt, you are a wicked Rakshasi who entered my family in the guise of a relation. Bharat hissed like an enraged serpent. Immediate remedial action was required. He would bring Ram back and then take his place in the forest to fulfill the vow. How could he possibly remain in Ayodhya among the grieving citizens while Ram sat in some lonely wilderness? The prince pointed angrily at his mother as he went on. For your part, cruel woman, you had best either enter fire, swallow poison, or go yourself into the forest. There is no other course left for you to free yourself from the stain on your sinful deed. I myself shall be freed from sin only when Ram has been brought back and installed upon the throne. Bharat fell to the floor almost senseless with grief. His garments in disarray and his jewels tossed about. The prince looked like a banner raised in honor of Indra and suddenly dropped down again. While Bharat lay absorbed in sorrow, Gandhara's ministers, having heard the commotion in Kaikeyi's room, gathered around. After some Shri Shri Kishore Kishore Jagannath Baladev Balaram Shri Shri Gauri Kai Shri Siddhartha Saraswati Radha Prabhupada Kuri A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki.